From the Alex Trebek stage at Sony Picture Studios, this is Inside Jeopardy!
Oh, there he is, the great Johnny Gilbert. Have I ever needed to hear the dulcet sounds, his amazing guitar technique, Sarah? Just delighted to hear that. It always puts me in a better mood. Welcome back to Inside Jeopardy, your exclusive and official podcast destination for all things happening in the world of Jeopardy. I'm Michael Davies. I'm joined today by producer Sarah Foss.
Thank you, Michael. So happy to be back here with you on the pod, our little pod that just celebrated its 1-year anniversary. Hard to believe. 1 year of Inside Jeopardy. We've got a great episode ahead. A little later, Buzzy will join us as we catch up with Jeopardy Masters finalist and fan favorite Mattea Roach. But right now, Michael, it's time to talk about season 40.
Absolutely. And I have a few things I want to say. You know, as always, I really appreciate in what has been, frankly, a very challenging time in my almost 2 years at Jeopardy. I really do appreciate the feedback, and I read everything. I read all of it. You know this, I've said it before. Across all of our social media, and I just really appreciate just how passionate and enthused everybody is on all of our issues, whether they be creative on the show or the practical of what's going on behind the scenes. There is something I have to say right at the outset, and that is how much I admire and miss our writers. They are beloved and valued members of the Jeopardy team, just as they value every other member of our team, the research team who report to the writers, clearance, the contestant department, our producers, our control room crew, our post department, our editors, our camera team, security, craft service, hair, makeup, standards, our game board team, our graphics, our social media, our stage management, our stage crew, our lighting and engineering, and technical and production management, everybody involved in this thing. This really is a family who make this show, who've been through a lot together over the last few years. And just the respect that everybody holds for each other is something remarkable about this program. And I think it comes across on air.
Well, Michael, as someone who's worked here for 22 years, it means so much to have someone in your position who genuinely cares about the show, about the product that we're putting out there, and about the community who counts on this product. And I know you're doing the best you possibly can to provide the most optimal solution in a situation that we all wish was different right now.
Well, thank you for that. I get up every morning and I just do my best. Okay, so let's now turn our attention to season 40. And I think before we get into what has been, by the necessity of the industrial action, a change season 40. I think, first of all, we should talk about what the original plan was for season 40, because I don't think we ever really got to a point to say, here's our plan for season 40.
We alluded to it.
Yeah, we alluded to it, but I think we should say what was the original plan in full before we talk about how that has been compromised in many ways and that we have to adjust. So the original plan for season 40 was we were going to extend the postseason. And in fact, we were going to kick off the entire season with postseason episodes. About 10 and a half weeks, we would go into a second chance for season 39. We would go into a Champions Wildcard tournament for season 39, which we've already discussed.
The first ever.
Yes, the first ever. And then into a TOC. And at the end of that postseason, we were going to go back into regular Jeopardy to the extent that any episode of Jeopardy is regular. And we were going to regular Jeopardy with the only exceptions of the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament that we were going to run probably in February.
The JIT.
And in May, we were going to make high school or college Jeopardy. And so what that would have led to is about 15 to 16 weeks of postseason and special tournaments, and about 30 to 31 weeks of regular Jeopardy. And in my mind, that balance is sort of right. When I look at other, and I know I annoy a lot of people by referring to Jeopardy as a sport, but when I look at the sort of the ratios of regular season to postseason, I felt that, 150 to 155 episodes of regular Jeopardy offering hundreds of contestants a first chance to appear on the Alex Trebek stage and compete was a pretty good balance against the postseason and against the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament, which would feed into Masters. And then the high school and college episodes, which to me are very important because this involves player development amongst our younger audience, which is really important for the future of Jeopardy, for us to continue to be able to promote Jeopardy within those audiences. And also will be backed up, and we'll get to these announcements more later in the season, with us building genuine program within high schools and colleges around Jeopardy, which is something that I think is really important. So those were our main plans for season 40, plus something which will continue when we go back to the regular, I'm doing air quotes, episodes of Jeopardy. A major announcement which we can make today, which is that we are increasing the second and third place prize amounts by $1,000 each. So the third place prize will move up to $2,000. The second place prize will move up to $3,000. This is something that we've been working on ever since I really took the reins at the show. It's something that obviously is discussed widely within our social communities and with the community of our contestants. We understand that post-COVID, travel costs have increased. We understand how complicated sort of funding a trip to Jeopardy is for, many contestants within our community. And we think this is way about time that we did this, and we're happy to announce that. The other plan in season 40 is Celebrity Jeopardy. We always knew was going to be returning. We actually didn't know whether it was going to return earlier in the year or later in the year, but that will be returning this September. And Jeopardy Masters, frankly, ABC let us announce on air that we were coming back. I haven't seen the official paperwork, but I can't imagine it's not. So Jeopardy Masters will return, I imagine, around the same time next year. So the question is, what is our plan this season? How have we adjusted based on everything that's happened and the limitations based on our material? I think to some extent, I realized that Jeopardy was going to have to go into some sort of holding pattern. Obviously, the entire staff is committed to producing the best episodes we possibly can. But I understand that the best episodes that are possible are episodes that feature our writers writing original material and the very best contestants, as we've always put on the air, playing that original material. I knew immediately that we would have to postpone our postseason because the postseason, the way it feeds into everything else, into this sort of pyramid that goes into Masters, is so important to me. I knew immediately that I wanted to postpone that to a point when our writers will have returned and be able to write the original material that tournament deserves. So how do we go into a holding pattern? I also believe principally that it would not be fair to have new contestants making their first appearance on the Alex Trebek stage, doing it with non-original material, or, as we'll talk about, a combination of non-original material and material that was written pre-strike. And so we decided that really we needed to invite back and give a second chance in general to players who probably thought that their chance to come back and play on the Alex Trebek stage had gone forever. So we're going to open the season with a second chance tournament for players from season 37 who lost their initial game. And winners from that will advance to a season 37 and season 38 Champions Wildcard.
I know people were really excited about Champions Wildcard back when we first announced it, and we will still be featuring it for Season 39 players, but this is our chance to open it up to a select number of players from Season 37 and Season 38 who just never thought they were going to get that call back on the Alex Trebek stage, players that won at least one game but didn't qualify for the Tournament of Champions. And as Michael mentioned, we're going to kick off the season with Season 37 Second Chance. Now, if you're wondering about Season 38 Second Chance, that's essentially what we did last year when we debuted Second Chance. So really, we're just trying to find these great contestants from recent years who didn't think they would get another opportunity, allowing them to come back and providing some great games for those of you that are looking forward to the launch of the season. One exciting thing about this plan is that the new prizing that Michael referred to, the $3,000 for second place and $2,000 for third place, will go into effect at the start of season 40 because in Second Chance, if you don't win your initial game, you do receive that standard second and third place prizing.
Yeah, and then once we get our riders back, we'll head into our season 39 postseason which will culminate with the TOC.
And then we will feature the all-new, highly anticipated, I know you mentioned it earlier in the episode, the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament, the JIT. This is our competition that's going to really showcase some of the Jeopardy greats from years past, and they're going to be vying for a coveted spot in the next Jeopardy Masters.
And then we will get on with the business of the season 40 regular season, inviting new players who've never played before on the stage to come and make their way into a postseason. Because I have no idea of the timing of when this ends, when all of this can happen. It's tough for me right now to forecast what's going to happen with the season 40 postseason that will take place during season 41. I have been adamant that I want to do this at the same time every year. I got 1 year of doing that, and that already got derailed. So we will attempt to get back on track. That is my plan. That is my promise. But for now, a lot of these plans have been derailed.
And we also want to offer some encouraging news for those of you who are listening who are in our contestant pool to be a contestant for the first time. We know that normally you're in that pool for about 18 months, but we're going to extend that eligibility for 2 years. We know that this is pushing back, that timeline. And so we want to make sure that this doesn't impact your chance to get on the Alex Trebek stage for the first time.
So episodes at the beginning of the season for the season 37 and season 38 contestants, the material that we're going to be using is a combination of material that our WGA writers wrote before the strike, which is still in the database, and material that is being redeployed from multiple seasons of the show. Now, when it comes to Celebrity Jeopardy, that's a very different situation because fortunately Celebrity Jeopardy was entirely written under the WGA contract before the strike was called. So that material has been organized by our research team and applied to the shows, and that is all original, fresh material.
Yeah, and we're already hard at work booking exciting talent. Looking forward to season 2. We know it's going to debut at the end of September. And my favorite part, Triple Jeopardy will be back.
Yeah, we're working on a couple of other things. I mentioned earlier about the high school and college program. We're continuing to work on our bar network, continuing to work on our book club, and a couple of things we're playing around with, I should say. And this is sort of very much inspired by you all. We've been playing around in post with giving the audience a chance to understand a little bit more the geography of the game board. We, as I've said before, we have this great advantage in studio as producers, and the contestants and the studio audience have the same thing. You've been lucky enough to be there, that you get to sort of see the game board and see the geography of which categories are left, what's left in there, and to understand exactly what category we're in the whole time. And so sometimes when I watch on air, even though I was there in the studio, I get very lost as to where we are in the game, where we are on the game board, what category we're in. And, the pace of our play, and I think the increasing pace of our play has increased that problem. And we've read from a lot of you deal with the same thing. So we've been looking in post about how to do that, whether it's the answer is putting the category in the clue, which I don't think it is, or whether or not there's a different shot sequence that we can put together without changing in any way the game, without changing in any way the audio of the game, but a different shot sequence to give the audience more of the experience that contestants and that the audience and that producers have in studio. So we're playing around with that, and that's something which we'll talk about perhaps a little bit more on an upcoming episode.
Yeah, I'm really excited for people to get a sneak peek at that, Michael, whenever we decide to unveil it, because I do think it's going to change the viewer experience. And I think you're going to get that sense that you're right there in the studio, you're playing along, you know where we are, you know how many clues are left, you know where the contestants calling from on the board. I love the way your mind works, Michael. Sometimes I give you that look. I know you call it the death stare, but really, it leads to great things.
Well, yeah, it is. We've always got to try and push it forward. I always find it remarkable, and it's something, I find myself in moments when we're not taping and I reflect more on this remarkable program and this remarkable format. What Merv and Julianne Griffin created 60 years ago that went on air on NBC in 1964, March 30th, 1964. Just how adventurous the original format was, just how different it was, just how much they nailed it. Even the wagering aspect, the sort of what for Merv made it Jeopardy. The sort of the drama of the lighting changes and the drama of the wager in the Daily Double, or the increase in prize values in Double Jeopardy, the gameplay in Final Jeopardy. It's really only now in the modern era, in the post-Holtzauerian era, that we're seeing a lot of those format elements really come alive. We're seeing the way that really works. We're seeing those like truly informed. And it is such a remarkable format created by them. It has been improved and improved along the way and across the years. And I think as part of my obligation to the program, during my contract here, during my time here, is to try to listen to the audience and push it forward and make it better within the scope of my ability to do so. And that's ability both in terms of how good I am at my job, or whether I'm good at my job, and also what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. And some of what I'm not allowed to do is probably very good, Sarah, which is why I get the death stare every now and then.
Well, you mentioned Merv and Julianne Griffin. Obviously, they were two of our Hall of Fame inductees at Jeopardy Honors. And we do want to say that we plan to bring Jeopardy Honors back. We really want to make that an annual event. It's something that we will time around the taping of the Tournament of Champions. Jean Trebek is planning to be there once again to present the Alex Trebek Person of the Year Award. And we want to have more categories. So we also want to hear from you. What types of things do you want to be recognized at Jeopardy Honors? Those contestants who really stood out to you over the year for various things that they did or didn't do up on the Alex Trebek stage.
Okay, Sarah, you've got plenty more show to get through. Why don't you introduce our next segment?
Well, thank you so much, Michael. We know you have to run, but let's bring in Buzzy Cohen and Matea Roach to the pod. Matea, so good to have you with us. It's been 2.5 months now since we last saw you on the Alex Trebek stage in Masters. No one can forget it. The finals of Masters.
My God. Burning a hole through my handy-dandy notebook. How are you doing in the aftermath?
I'm okay. I'm in vacation mode. Basically, as soon as Masters was over, I was like, I don't have to work. The process of shooting it took a lot longer than any of us expected. And so even though I was super excited with how things turned out, I think I definitely was ready to have a break from the world of Jeopardy. I finally went on my vacation to Portugal. At the time that this episode is released, I will have gone back to Halifax to hang out with my family, hang out with my parents' dog. It's going to be great.
So you've talked already a lot about how life has changed as being a hugely important Canadian and a person in all of our lives. We've talked a lot about how the good and the bad, but is there something maybe that you miss from the before times?
Pre-Matea Roach super champion.
Yeah.
I will say I am not the hugest fan of being recognized in public. It's nice in the sense of I'm always really moved by how excited some people are to see me. On the other hand, there was a period of time, I think specifically, it ebbs and flows with when there's airing, right? So
Right.
When Masters was on, and especially during my original run, it was like I couldn't go to the grocery store without somebody trying to talk to me. So I do sometimes miss knowing that I can definitely go out and the only people that are going to try and speak to me are people I personally know. But that's a pretty minor, for the most part, things have been, the money's been nice. The new career opportunities have been nice. I really can't complain very much.
Yeah.
Well, and you have done, several different things career-wise, podcasting, other shows. What's resonating most with you at this point? What would you say is kind of what you're leaning towards doing, for your other career? Professional game show contestant being one of them, of course.
I'm really enjoying podcasting. Podcasting is a format that I've enjoyed for a long time as a listener. I think it's very intimate. It allows for sort of longer form conversations. And I've been really enjoying, learning the process of how things get made, developing my skills as an interviewer. So that's something that I hope to continue doing. It's really hard to say what my career is going to be. I think this isn't just true of people who have these kind of weird life-changing events that cause them to maybe rethink what their options are. But I know a lot of my friends that I went to university with who've had sort of more conventional trajectories are finding, okay, well, I'm maybe not going to get a job doing the thing that I went to school for. Maybe I'm going to pivot to something else, or, people will stay in one career for a couple of years and then realize they want to go back to school, and there's a lot of changes. So At the time that I was on the show originally, like one thing that I had been thinking of doing was going to law school. I think I probably still will, just not yet.
Right. Well, you mentioned like your peers and your friends and stuff like that. It is very interesting. You are the first Gen Z super
champion.
On God, for real, for real. Do you feel like, obviously you are, just by being so public, a representation of a lot of different things, but how does it feel to kind of be bringing Gen Z up to the front on the Alex Trebek stage? Is that not something that's really crossed your mind?
Well, it's crossed because people keep talking about it. I think especially the fact that I was 23 when I was on the show and then won 23 games was just like too good of a statistic to pass up. Really,
I know.
Like, milking.
Yes,
we
agree.
It's pretty perfect. It's pretty perfect. I think I'm a bad representative of Gen Z though. Like there was a moment during Masters where I got a clue that was like about a TikTok star, and Ken made some joke of like, of course you're gonna get the TikTok clue. And I was like, Ken, like I don't have TikTok.
I love that about you. I tell my children, Matea's not on TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok, no. And it's funny, my brothers are all younger than me, and I don't think any of them are on it either. But it is nice, I think, to bring a youthful energy to the show. I think as well, because I see sometimes on like people posting on Reddit about Jeopardy who are younger. There's the whole conversation of like, do I waste my eligibility when I'm young, or should I wait until I'm older and know more stuff? And it's like, well, actually, you probably know a lot of stuff. If you're the sort of person that's like into Jeopardy enough that you're plotting out when you're going to maximize your potential return, like during your window of eligibility, you probably know a lot more stuff than you're giving yourself credit for. So I think it's, I guess, nice to show that young people don't just go on their phones. And well, sometimes we go on our phones and like read Wikipedia for hours, I guess. And you can win a lot of money off a game show with your Wikipedia knowledge.
Well, Michael Davies has spoken about the fact that because you are so young and you've already reached such a high level on this show, watch out.
I actually need to set the record straight because I incorrectly quoted you as using an expletive.
Yes.
But what you actually said is, once I start actually making trivia flashcards, it's so over for everyone. I felt the energy of that, and the way I would have expressed it would have included an expletive. I am sorry, Matea.
It's allowed. People can know I swear.
I was like, Buzzy, pull out that text from Matea, and he just read it, and I was like, wait, they never said blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I may have added that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little ad-libbing. It's kind of interesting to be in a position where people are saying, oh, and you're not even at your full potential, because it does put on a little bit of pressure of like, okay, so when I come back to next year's Masters, like, do I have to do better? God, like, can I possibly beat James Holzhauer? Is it like, can anyone do it? Who's to say? I guess this is why we have to run it every year. I think I have a long runway before I start getting into the territory of like my recall not being as fast. And there is so much that I still know I can learn. Like the amount of information that's come across my desk, I would say, since I was on the show originally, and since I started doing things like play Learned League, or just even like make an active effort to remember things. Like if I'm at a museum and I am, looking at the little placards next to paintings, like trying to actually internalize that information, I've noticed like a huge growth in what I'm able to recall and what sorts of answers I'm able to pull. So if I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to continue playing, I like to think that I'm just going to get better, at least for a while.
It used to be that our greats were invited back maybe every 5 to 10 years for some big ultimate tournament of sorts. And now Michael Davies has really changed that up. As you just mentioned, like, you're coming back to Masters next year. What's it like to just kind of know, based on pretty good performance, you've got an open invitation, if you will, to every year be back on this stage?
It's a huge honor, for one. It's not just the fact that the folks working in production want to invite me back and want to continue to have a working relationship, but the fact that people are hopefully, viewers are willing to continue watching me means a lot. I've been, again, like really surprised and honored by the positive reaction I've gotten from most folks who've watched me on the show. It is also nice, I suppose, the stakes of a competition like Masters are quite high in terms of like what the prize payouts are. It is sort of a nice thing to know, okay, this could be something that's going to supplement my income from other projects that I want to do. It alleviates some of the pressure of like, okay, I need to go and get a job that's like stable, secure, really serious. It is cool to know, okay, well, if the prize values of Masters are what they were this year, I can expect, at least $50,000 coming my way. Like, that's ridiculous to me. I would have never thought a year and a half ago when I got the call to be on the show for the first time that I'd be in a position to have a little annuity of getting to come back.
Well, you talked about your regular season run. You're 5th on the all-time games won, 6th for regular season winnings, 10th for all-time winnings. I've been asking our Masters, is there a stat that you are most proud of?
I think for me, being the sort of most successful Canadian across all metrics, because it's the one thing where I can say unambiguously I'm number one, which is always nice.
Yeah.
Alex is number one in our hearts, but he didn't compete. He's certainly made much more money from being on the Alex Trebek stage than I ever will. But in terms of contestants, that one means a lot. I think particularly because people will comment of like, oh, well, the content of the show focuses, of course, a lot on American pop culture, American history, because it's an American program. And to not have taken the same history courses as the other contestants and to not have been just like immersed in the soup of American culture for my whole life, that's pretty cool.
Amazing.
Now, when you talk about, I could never, think that this could have been a second career, that I could actually, make a living or at least a second living in this, you're now playing with people who have done just that. And you're nearly defeating them, James Holzhauer. To hear the types of things that he said about you and how, in his 50 plus games, he had never once felt absolutely frazzled, completely unable to ring in, merely spectating as an opponent takes over the game until Mattea Roach did that. What is that like coming from, the so-called game show villain?
It is wild to me. I've talked about this a lot with my mom because, of course, my mom has come down to set and she's met, James and his wife, and she's met, I guess, all of the Masters. And we were talking after Masters taping finished about watching his run. It was like constantly in the news just because of how many records he was breaking. And we kind of couldn't believe, like 4 years after he was first on the show, that I was playing against him and actually was competitive in those games. Like, it just seems ridiculous. It seems like something that's happening to another person. I think James was probably too kind in his assessment of my gameplay. If you look at the stats from those games in Masters, he's ringing in much, much more. I don't know what kind of buzzer mojo I was able to find in that last week of shows, but it was like next level because just my success rate for each time that I rang in was like ridiculously high. But James is no slouch on the buzzer either. So it's amazing to hear those kinds of comments from somebody who's really perfected gameplay and I think has forced all of us to really raise the bar in terms of how we strategize, the depth of knowledge that we are expected to have. Like I said before, I hope I can put the pressure on again in the future. We'll see.
Well, I know a lot of people were skeptical when they first heard about Masters, obviously. Oh, this is a TOC rematch, plus throw in James. And obviously the response after Masters, such a different reaction. What was it like to kind of hear that criticism going in and then be able to feel the love after of, wow, that really did work and those 6 were phenomenal on that stage?
I understood where the criticism was coming from, especially because I know for some folks that are big fans of the show, they want to see players from, 5-10 years ago that they remember being really talented come back. And like you said, in the past, it'd only be for things like Ultimate Tournament of Champions or Battle of the Decades or All-Stars. It'd be every, maybe 5 years that you'd see these people come back. What I kind of thought, though, was the TOC was almost a nice test case for Masters in the sense that not only did we have the exhibition match between me, Matt, and Amy that produced like a completely different result and different lineup of players than anything we saw later on, but we saw across the course of the, best first to 3 final, totally different results, different wagering strategy that emerges when you have the same group of players going up against each other a bunch of times in a row. And you get to see as well like a kind of camaraderie and dynamic between those players that you don't get in a single elimination tournament. Of course, there was a risk that with Masters, it was going to become like super stratified. And, I think there was concerns like James was so dominant during the quarterfinals, like isn't the rest of the tournament just going to be a romp? Or like, well, Mattea and Matt didn't do so well in the TOC, so like why are we bothering to see? We already know they don't match up to Andrew and Amy and Sam. And I think that everything that happened in the tournament sort of like disproved this notion of like, well, this is already a settled issue, right? To use the sort of sports analogy that Michael Davies likes, it's like you don't have an NBA finals one year and then say, well, we've discovered who the best team is. And so now next year, let's have all new teams.
Right.
and find out of this completely different group of basketball players who the best ones are.
Right.
You know, you want to see how things evolve over time, how strategies change, how people improve or sort of, you know, as they get closer to the end of their careers in sports, maybe are not able to match up quite as well. Like, that's a big part of why people tune in. I think Masters really demonstrated how those notions also apply to Jeopardy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then aside from the competition side, here came this camaraderie. I mean, I've never had so much fun watching different groups of 3 compete on the stage because you knew the stakes were high, but boy, what you brought to the table and the fun that we were able to have alongside you was just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think it takes time to develop that comfort, first of all, on stage. I was someone who was relatively comfortable from fairly early on, but when you're playing in your original, you know, first game, first time on the stage, you've never done it before, right? It's like, there's so much going on, there's lights, there's sounds, there's so much to keep track of, and you're probably pretty nervous because, again, you've never done it before. So there's that element of, we've all played, I think the fewest games that any of the Masters have played was, I think Sam had played like 13, which is more than most people ever do. You know, we're much more comfortable in that environment, and we know each other, so we can actually make jokes, sometimes at each other's expense, in a way that you're not going to do that as a regular season player. You don't know your competition that well, you've just met them that day. So it was a ton of fun to play these games, and the stakes were high, but in a sense they were also lower than regular season, because you knew, at least at the beginning of the competition, regardless of, you might come third, you might not even get to play final, but you still get to come back for another game.
Mm-hmm.
That's super different than a format where every game you might get eliminated at the end of it.
So obviously you mentioned James being on stage, certainly leading the charge on some of the zingers. I want to know who the class clown was in the green room. Was it also James, or was somebody else kind of the
it's got to be Sam Buttrey.
Okay,
It's got to be Sam. Specifically, one thing Sam had a lot of fun doing was making jokes about how Matt would show up to the green room with like Yale merch, like so much Yale merch. I remember one day he was wearing like a Yale computer science t-shirt and also had a Yale thermos. And so Sam, of course, having gone to Princeton and Yale have a rivalry. There was a lot of that kind of joking around going on. I would say Sam's probably the class clown, but you know, everyone made a joke here and there. I think there was nobody who was like totally silent and stoic in the green room.
We've talked about, obviously, over the course of Masters, so many things that the 6 of you shared. Talk about the relationship and how you all were able to support each other through the various challenges and difficulties that came, whether it was the birth of a baby or the loss of a family member. You guys went through a lot.
We did, yeah. We joked about that a lot. I was listening to like Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds at one point, so shortly after, and you know, that's the whole, it's the book of Ecclesiastes, like a time to be born, a time to die. And I texted like a couple of the other Masters. I was like, wow, I can't believe they wrote this song about the taping of Jeopardy Masters. Anyway, I think because we spent so much time together and we were sharing an experience that is so specific and that, you know, a lot of other people can't quite relate to, you become close like in those kind of confined situations where you're just like, okay, it's the first time we're doing this sort of tournament. We're spending days and days shooting it. You know, I think it's very moving the way that, for instance, when Andrew got the call that his partner was in labor and that he probably should go home, like there was no question from anybody of like, no, you know, we need to finish shooting today. Like we all just thought, you know, okay, family's the most important thing. You go, we'll figure this out later. And that was like universal among the contestants and then everybody working on the show too. Same thing with my dad passing. My mom, you know, at first, I think she felt really bad that I was down there by myself and that she wasn't with me or I wasn't with my siblings or whatever. But then the second time I called her back to let her know what my plan was for coming home and things, she said, you know, I realized you're not with your family, but you are with a family. Like it's a family operation at Jeopardy, really. Both in the sense that, you know, people are bringing their family members to the set constantly. So you're meeting people's spouses, sometimes people's kids, parents, that sort of thing. But, you know, also in the sense that, especially because so many people at the show have been working there for such a long time, there's like a real sense of care and camaraderie among the production side of things. You know, I have this photo on my phone that I really love that's like a selfie of, I think James had gone home already, but it's a selfie of the other 5 of us from actually the day that my dad passed. Because I was like, well, we're here. What am I going to do? Sit around? Like, let's hang out and be together. And it was like such a terrible day. But at the same time, I remember saying, like, at least I get to be here with this group of people on such a bad, like, it could be worse. It really could be worse. So it's unfortunate in some senses, and I guess interesting too, because this is a show that's experienced like the loss of Alex and the loss of other folks that have worked on it. People are experienced in having to come together in those difficult moments. It's unfortunate. Any loss is unfortunate, but it's like beautiful when people are able to come together and support each other through it. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, and you talk about your mom, Patty. I know my mom spent time with your mom. I think Patty met everybody in the audience. And what a wonderful woman. I love Patty.
My mom's the best. Yeah,
She really
I think
is.
my mom was like the most popular person at set when she came down because everybody wanted to say hi to her. My mom is fantastic, and I'm so grateful that she and also my dad, because my dad had come to TOC taping,
Right.
and he came to one of the Masters tape dates in March. So grateful that they've gotten to meet so many folks who work on the show. And so, yeah, again, like it's a family affair, especially for those of us that are lucky enough to be on the show multiple times. It becomes a huge part of our lives. Our families are often, people that we've watched Jeopardy with, people that are our biggest supporters and cheerleaders. And so for her to have met so many folks that work on the show was really nice. My mom and I went to like Griffith Observatory the day before we shot the semis and finals, and it was just like a beautiful day. And then, we had a group dinner with the four of us that were still competing, and a couple of, friends, and, James's wife was there and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was like so many things over the past couple months, like sad and happy at the same time, weird in mostly a good way.
Well, speaking of weird in mostly
Yes,
a good way,
this is really one of Buzzy's top questions.
one of my top
and
questions.
I love to hear
I'm sorry to
everyone's
like do a hard
response.
pivot.
Hard pivot.
What is your lunch order when you are here on the Sony lot?
So that's a good question. So I get like really bad nervous stomach. When I was first taping the show, like I could barely eat anything at lunch. So what I would do is I would just try and get kind of the blandest of the options, and I would just be eating the rice or the potatoes or whatever, and maybe a little bit of like chicken shawarma or like orange chicken or falafel or something. Now that I am a bit more comfortable going to Jeopardy, and it's still incredibly tense, but I am able to like eat a full meal now at lunch. I tend to gravitate towards like, there was like a fried chicken salad one time that was quite good. Like I gravitate
I know that
towards
one.
things with chicken and some greens. Like you want to have something that's balanced and not too heavy, I would say. And then I'll usually get something caffeinated and also sparkling water. Like I'm a 2-drink at lunch kind of person, because you need the hydration, but you also need the energy. James was, oh my God, James hated that I was drinking Diet Pepsi in the green room. He was like, how did they let you on this show? You prefer Diet Pepsi to Diet Coke? What are you doing?
That's
He has a
controversial.
strong opinion about that.
There were several things I think that I said about food that just caused him to be so upset. I was talking about dim sum because Andrew had visited Toronto back in January, and we'd gone out, not to a dim sum place, but kind of a similar vibe. And I said something about my favorite dim sum item is squid tentacle. It's my absolute favorite thing. I think it's so good. And I can see the looks on your faces. You're like, no, Mateo.
Wow.
No, I'm into it. I'm
Buzzy
with
would
you.
love it. Buzzy's into it.
Yeah, James was a hard no on squid tentacle. He was like, that sounds terrible. So there were a couple things like that. Also, one thing that got brought up several times during games was James's general lack of interest in movies that aren't Fast and Furious
Yes.
franchise.
Yes.
Yes.
And then meanwhile, I'm like, oh, I saw, Jeanne Dielman when they did it at TIFF in January, which is like a 3-hour long movie where nothing happens. And I'm like, I would hate to see what would happen if you tried to make James watch Jeanne Dielman. It's not for everyone, and it's for sure, I think, not for him.
I think he'd need a lot of pizza
And Diet Mug root
Diet
beer.
Mug root beer to make it through that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, your 3 brothers, we've never met them. Are they going to come to LA next time? I feel like we need to meet the rest of the Roaches. Oh, really?
One of them has come. He came in March with my dad.
Okay.
He is very quiet, so he wouldn't have been running around introducing himself to folks on set. But yeah, so that was my youngest brother, Lachlan. He is a big skateboarding guy. And so LA is like skateboarding mecca. So he came down in March, and then he and my dad stayed for a couple of days after the taping. And, my brother was going around to different skate parks, and he's like a big into streetwear. So he was like wanting to go shopping and that sort of thing. My twin brothers, which I always have to, I don't know why people get confused about this, because they're like, oh, you're a triplet? I'm like, I said twin. I did not say triplet. I would say my fellow triplets, if that's
Yes.
what I meant. Anyway, twin brothers who are 20, they have not been able to come down because taping has interfered typically with like university school scheduling. Hopefully, they might be able to make the trip down maybe next Masters.
So will there be flashcards between now and the next Masters? That's what I want to know.
I think probably there should be. I was at my office earlier, and one of my coworkers was asking, what's going to bother you more in terms of like a Final Jeopardy that I missed? Hartsfield-Jackson Airport from my original run, or Thomas Mallory from Masters? And I was like, Thomas Mallory seems like something that if I were to make flashcards on like who are big English literature names, that seems like something that should be gettable if you're somebody who has like a good repository of like, I'm studying people that get talked about in like first year university English syllabi or something like that. Right. The one thing that's challenging though is that with master's level material, when you get down to even like the $1,200 clues, sometimes you're looking at stuff that's specific and obscure enough that you would have to have like such a big repository of study materials and have such a large arsenal of, whether it's your flashcards, whether it's your reading your, For Dummies guides from the library or whatever, you'd have to have just like such a big repository of study materials before you ever get to any of it. So I think flashcarding and that sort of studying can be really helpful, but then there's like limits to how much you're realistically going to accomplish with it as well. Yeah.
But the combination, Matea, combination for you, I think
we can talk, Matea. We'll talk offline.
Oh, okay,
I'm a big, I became a flashcard convert. I've got 30,000 flashcards on my phone.
All Stars. His training was legit.
Didn't get me very far, as you like to point out, but got a $10,000 daily double thanks to it.
Well, we know that there are many years ahead for you on the Alex Trebek stage, but looking back on the past couple, what would you say is the highlight?
I think if I have to only pick one, I think that the first time that you become a Jeopardy champion, you need to have that moment in order to have all the other moments after, right? When you're announced as the winner of that first game, like that's the moment where, regardless of what else happens after, you for the rest of your life can say, well, I am a Jeopardy champion. And I've said this many times, like when I was traveling down for my original game, Amy's games were airing on television as I was preparing to be on the show myself. And so I had expected either that she was going to be like breaking Ken's record and still taping, or that there would be some other person. I was like, well, there was Matt, there was Amy, there's going to be another. So the fact that, there was not this other mythical super champion, it turned out I was the next one.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
Also,
it was you.
Yeah, exactly. And that I won this game and I really like surpassed my wildest expectations. There's been so many other great moments, but that is, I think, the one that's always going to be the most special.
For anyone listening that could be the next Matea Roach and maybe thinks, I could never go on a streak like they did. I could never do what they did. What do you want to tell them? What do you want to say to those people that just haven't quite taken that short anytime test that you took just a few years ago?
Well, I also thought that I could not do it. And not even like in a I lack self-confidence way, but it didn't occur to me that it was something that was possible for me. This is another thing too. I think obviously being very successful on Jeopardy is amazing. Being on Jeopardy at all is also amazing and something worth shooting for, right? So there's so many elements of the experience that are kind of outside your control in terms of what happens, but you never get to the stage unless you take the test, right? That is fundamentally the first thing that you need to do. If you don't test yourself in that manner, if you don't put yourself out there, then you can't reap any of the rewards of the experience, whether that is, playing one game and meeting, your contestant cohort on that one day and maybe making lifelong friendships from that. Like there are people that have like met their spouses because they were contestants on Jeopardy together, or whether that's you win a life-changing amount of money. Like any experience from being on once to being on, however many times I end up getting to play is all worth it, I would say. So yeah, just take the test.
Well, I know we are so thankful that you took the test on that day.
Who would I be the biggest fan of
if
Matea had not taken the test? That's the thing. I'd have to still be a fan of myself.
Well, that still exists too. But we're so lucky, Matea, to have you in our Jeopardy family, to have you as one of our ambassadors. And we can't thank you enough for hanging out with us for a little bit. We can't wait to see you back on the Alex Trebek stage.
Thank you. I can't wait to come back. And then, who knows? Maybe I'll be one of those people that comes to watch TOC and like stare down, maybe off of my own handy dandy notebook watching.
Yes, we can sit next to each other. We could be like a Blue's Clues crew.
Yeah.
You can do it. Enjoy the rest of your summer, Matea. Please say hi to your family for us, and
Can't
we'll
wait
talk
to see you
soon.
back down here.
All right, sounds good.
Always fun getting to catch up with Matea Roach. They are a force, and I am so excited to have them back later in the season for Masters Season 2. All right, well, that brings us to the end of today's show. We'll be back next week with our special interview with Season 39's 9-game champion, Ben Chan. You will not want to miss it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate us, leave us a comment, share across social, and follow us at Jeopardy! On Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on TikTok. And send us your questions to InsideJeopardyPodcast@gmail.com. We'll see y'all next week.
Hey Ken, what's that thing the kids say?
You mean smash the like, subscribe, and bell button so you'll be the first to know when we upload more great videos?
Yeah, that's it. Do that.